Hello everyone, I hope you have all had a really great week and welcome back to my channel. If you're a regular, you will know that I am Mrs. Smith and I walk about and talk about all sorts of things from a Christian point of view. But a special welcome to you if you are new here. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Today I am walking in Guestling Woods in Hastings in Sussex. There is a car park here, but not much else to be honest. No toilets or refreshments, and the paths are uneven and can be a bit muddy. So this is one for those without mobility issues, I think. However, it is a lovely quiet place to walk. The subject I'm talking about today is one that is quite controversial, and not everyone watching this will agree with me. I am just giving you my thoughts and my opinions, and if yours differ to mine, then that is absolutely fine. I firstly want to start off by saying that the Christian Bible is very clear on the concept of telling lies. It condemns all forms of lying, even those intended to spare feelings or achieve a good outcome. While the Bible does talk about having love and discretion in your speech, it also emphasises truthfulness as a command from God. You know, the character of God is one of truth, and Christians are called to reflect the character of God. So lying in all its forms is seen as contradictory to God's character. And lying is also a direct violation of one of the 10 commandments. It reads, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbour." And Jesus also taught that our words should be simple and direct. He said, "Let your yes be your yes and your no be your no." That's in the book of Matthew in chapter 5 and verse 37 if you want to look it up. So that all seems pretty clear. Christians are called to speak the truth in love, even in difficult situations, rather than resorting to deceit. But that's hard, right? Because we all know that sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we feel the need to spare someone's feelings or tell a little white lie. But here's the thing. White lies can undermine trust. Even small acts of what we might feel is justified dishonesty can break trust within relationships. You know, believing that the positive outcome of a white lie makes it acceptable. It's kind of a flawed approach because it justifies a morally wrong act. Also, I feel like perpetuating white lies can cloud the conscience of the person telling them, and then they might have to tell another lie to cover up that first white lie, and so on. And that can get us into very tricky situations. So what do we do? Because I'm almost certain that, like me, you've been in situations where someone has done something like, I don't know, get a new haircut, and said to you, "Look at my new haircut, do you like it?" And you thought to yourself, "Oh my goodness, that looks absolutely awful." But you smiled at them and said, "Oh, that's lovely." Because you didn't want to hurt their feelings, right? It's incredibly hard sometimes, isn't it? So what do we do? I can only tell you what I try to do as a Christian. If the goal is to be truthful in a gracious and compassionate way that builds others up, and to try to avoid being harshly honest or hurtfully truthful, then in some situations I've used discretion, and in other situations I have stayed silent. Because for me, not saying anything or withholding my opinion is better than telling a lie. So sometimes I avoid answering the question, or I try to be discreet. But if we're really honest, we all lie, don't we? Let me give you an example. You see someone you know who says, "Hi, how are you?" And you say, "I'm good, thanks," when the reality is you're not doing so great, actually. But maybe you don't want to share that day. Maybe you're feeling anxious or low or depressed. Maybe you don't know that person well enough to open up to them. So instead you give them a quick response that allows you to move on in that conversation. Is that wrong by God? You see, I think that God knows our hearts. I've said this so many times in my videos before. He knows our motives behind what we do and what we say. He knows if we're struggling that day and are unable to share. He knows if we love that person and don't want to hurt them. He knows that sometimes we have to remain silent because otherwise we might be in a dangerous situation where telling the truth will endanger our very lives. He knows all of these things. And I have to say that there were times in the Christian Bible where God seemed to approve a lie. In the Bible, in the book of Exodus, it reads, I've got it in front of me, "The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, 'When you help the Hebrew women in childbirth and observe them on the delivery stool, if it's a boy, kill him, but if it's a girl, let her live.' The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, 'Why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live?' The midwives answered Pharaoh, 'Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive.' So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own." Now in that story, the midwives told an outright lie to spare the lives of the baby boys, and God seemed to approve. So what was going on there? Well, I don't personally believe that God was approving their lie. I believe that he was approving the fact that they feared him more than they feared the king. They were still putting God first, and that is why they lied. A white lie is an untrue statement, but it is usually considered unimportant, I suppose, because it doesn't usually cover up a serious, selfish wrongdoing. A white lie is deceptive, but it may also be polite or diplomatic at the same time. It could also be tactful, a lie told tactfully to keep the peace in a potentially violent or harmful situation or relationship. An exaggeration of the truth could help to keep someone safe, like the baby boys in the Bible story I just shared with you. And what about these lies? The secretary covering for the boss who doesn't want to be disturbed or she might lose her job. The salesman who exaggerates the qualities of the product because that's what he's been told to do by the boss. The job applicant who pads out his CV to make it look more appealing. It's sometimes not that easy, is it? That's why sometimes I stay silent if I don't want to lie, because a lie is providing false testimony, but omission of the truth is withholding information, which I personally feel is a very different thing. In the Christian Bible, in the book of Joshua, in chapter 2, we can read the story of Rahab, who hid the Israelite spies. When the city leaders came looking for them, she lied and she said that they had already left, and she even told them which way to go to find those spies. She told an outright lie. Now, as in the story I shared earlier, while God would not have approved of Rahab's lie, he did commend her for her faith in him that motivated her actions, which resulted in her being saved. Her lie is not what God rewarded, but she was praised for her faith in God and for taking the action of hiding the spies, because she demonstrated a higher loyalty to God than to the king. God's approval of her rested on her faith, not on her lie. God understood why she did it, though. He understood her motives, her reasons, and she was saved. I guess I'm saying that this subject of telling little white lies is not clear-cut. There are many factors at play. And at the end of the day, as I said before, God knows our motives, our hearts, and our intent, and he will judge us accordingly. But I guess for me, I will always try to speak the truth or stay silent if the truth is going to hurt someone or put someone's life in danger. But sometimes, if the situation is right, I will choose to speak that potentially hurtful truth in love, because it's the right thing to do by God, but also because if done in the right way, it can actually build trust. It can strengthen relationships. And I feel like balancing honesty with compassion and delivering difficult truths with gentleness and kindness is always going to be the better way. But what do you think? Thank you so much for joining me today on another walk and talk, and please do hit that thumbs up for me and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It will really help me out. But until next time, please take care and God bless you all. Bye.